Welcome to The Tar Heel, a compelling collection of first-hand accounts and historical insights that bring to life the experience of North Carolina soldiers during the American Civil War, known as Tar Heels. For their state's production of tar and pitch, these soldiers left an indelible mark on some of the most pivotal battles and moments in American history. It is written by Louis Leon, who served as a private in the 53rd North Carolina Infantry Regiment. This diary was commenced for the fun of writing down my experience as a soldier from the old North State. I never thought for a moment that I would put it in print, but now that I am getting old and have read so many histories written by our officers, but have never seen in print a history written by a private, I know that my diary is truly the life of the man behind the gun. Therefore, I make bold to publish it. I am sure my experience was that of other privates and a true history of my companies and regiments, as well as the brigade, division, and even corps that I belong to. I am certain that the men of 61 to 65 who read this will recall most vividly the camping, marching, fighting, and suffering they endured in those never-to-be forgotten days of long ago. And to the younger generation of Southern-born, it will show how we endured and suffered, but still fought on for the cause we know was right. April 25th, 1862, I belong to the Charlotte Grays, Company C, 1st North Carolina Regiment. We left home for Raleigh. Our company is commanded by Captain Egbert Ross. We are all boys between the ages of 18 and 21. We offered our services to Governor Ellis, but were afraid he would not take us as we are so young. But before we were called out, our company was ordered to go to the United States Mint in our town and take same. We marched down to it, and it was surrendered to us. We guarded it several days when we were ordered to Raleigh and left on the above date. Our trip was full of joy and pleasure, for at every station where our train stopped, the ladies showered us with flowers and Godspeed. We marched to the fairgrounds. The streets were lined with people, cheering us. When we got there, our company was given quarters, and lo and behold, horse stables with straw for bedding is what we got. I know we all thought it a disgrace for us to sleep in such place with our fine uniforms, not even a washstand or any place to hang our clothes on. They didn't even give us a looking glass. Our company was put in the 1st North Carolina Regiment, commanded by Colonel D.H.E. H. Hill, Lieutenant Colonel C.C. Lee, and Major James H. Lane. We enlisted for 6 months. Our state went out of the Union on May 20th, and we were sent to Richmond, Virginia on the 21st. Stayed there several days when we were ordered to Yorktown, Virginia. Here they gave us tents to sleep in. This looked more like soldiering, but we would have liked to have had some of that straw in Raleigh. The day after we got here, our company was sent out with spades and shovels to make breastworks, and to think of the indignity we were expected to do the digging. Why, of course, I never thought that this was work for soldiers to do, but we had to do it. Gee, what hands I had after a few days' work. I know I never had a pick or a shovel in my hand to work with in my life. A few days after that, a squad of us were sent out to cut down trees, and by George, they gave me an axe and told me to go to work. Well, I cut all over my tree until the lieutenant commanding, seeing how nice I was marking it, asked me what I had done before I became a soldier. I told him I was a clerk in a dry goods store. He said he thought so from the way I was cutting timber. He relieved me, but what insults are put on us who came to fight the Yankees? Why, he gave me 2 buckets and told me to carry water to the men that could cut. We changed camps several times until about the 3rd of June, when we marched 15 miles and halted at Bethel Church and again commenced making breastworks. Our rations did not suit us. We wanted a change of diet, but there were strict orders from Colonel D.B.H. Hill that we should not go out foraging. Well, Bill Stone, Ailey Todd, and myself put on our knapsacks and went to the creek to wash our clothes, but when we got there, we forgot to wash. We took a good long walk away from the camp and saw several shoats. We ran one down, held it so it could not squeal, then killed it, cut it in small pieces, put it in our knapsacks, returned to the creek, and from there to camp, where we shared it with the boys. It tasted good. Our comrade Earnhardt did not fare so well. He went to a place where he knew he could get some honey. He got it all right, but he got the bees also. His face and hands were a sight when he got the beehive to camp. June 10th. At 3 o'clock this morning, the long roll woke us up. We fell in line, marched about 5 miles, then counter-marched. As the Yankees were advancing on us, we got to our breastworks a short time before the Yankees came, and firing commenced. We gave them a good reception with shot and shell. The fight lasted about 4 hours. Our company was behind the works that held the line where the major of the Yankee regiment, Winthrop, was killed. After he fell, our company was ordered to the church, but was soon sent back to its former position. This is the first land battle of the war, and we certainly gave them a good beating, but we lost one of our regiment, Henry Wyatt, who was killed while gallantly doing a volunteer duty. 7 of our men were wounded. The Yankees must have lost at least 200 men in killed and wounded. It was their boast that they could whip us with cornstalks, but to their sorrow, they found that we could do some fighting too. After the fight, some of the boys and myself went over the battlefield, and we saw several of the Yankee dead, the first I had ever seen, and it made me shudder. I am now in a school where sights like this should not worry me long. Our commander in this fight was Colonel Bankhead Magruder. The Yankee commander was General B. F. Butler. From now on, I will never again grumble about digging breastworks. If it had not been for them, many of us would not be here now. We returned the same night to Yorktown, full of glory. On July 18th, we heard that our boys had again whipped the Yankees at Bull Run. Also, on July 21st, again at Manassas. We changed camp a number of times, made fortifications all around Yorktown, and when our 6 months were over, we were disbanded and returned home. So my experience as a soldier was over. I stayed home 5 months when I again took arms for the Old North State and joined a company raised by Captain Harvey White of Charlotte, and left our home on April 23rd, 1862 at 6:30 p.m. I stayed in Salisbury until next night, when I, with several others, took the train for Raleigh, at where our company was. We went to the insane asylum to see Langfried, who wanted to go home by telegraph to see his cotton and tobacco. After spending most of our day in town, we went to camp 4 miles from Raleigh. We stopped a carriage, and the driver said he would take us to camp for $3. We halved it with him, and he drove us there. We reported to Captain White, and he showed us to our hut. We were surprised to find it without a floor, roof half off, and wholly all over. We commenced repairing and went to the woods to chop a pole for a part of the bedstead. We walked about a mile before we found one to suit us. It was a hard job to get it to our hut. We put it up and put boards across, and then put our bedding on it, which consisted of leaves we gathered in the woods. And now it is a bed fit for a king or a Confederate soldier. It commenced raining at dark, which compelled us to cover with our oilcloth coats. We did not get wet, but passed a bad night, as I had gotten used to a civilian's life again. May 31st. Up to date. Nothing transpired worth relating, but this morning got orders to leave. Left at 6 a.m., Our company got passenger cars, and the balance of our regiment had to take boxcars. June 1st, arrived at Weldon, North Carolina at 7 o'clock. We set up our tents at Gettysburg, a short march from Weldon. Our company is close to the railroad track. We collected broom straw and made a bed of down of it. June 2nd, we received some visitors from home. June 3rd, raining all day, but have a good time with the ladies in this neighborhood. They treated my comrade and myself only as Southern ladies know how to treat their soldiers with respect and something good to eat. June 4th, still raining and the roads are very muddy. June 5th, we were marched to town and received our arms, Springfield muskets. The next day went off very quietly. June 7th, at 11 o'clock tonight, we were roused out of our sleep and marched to Weldon Bridge, as the river was so swift that it was thought the bridge would wash away. We went there to knock the sides off so that the water could run over it, but we got there without tools. When they came, the water was receding, so we returned to camp. June 8th. Oh, I am very tired from our first night's march. June 20th. Up until this date, there has been nothing worth recording, but today got orders to fall in line with 2 days' rations cooked. Left at 12 noon in boxcars. We knocked holes in them to get fresh air. We laid over 6 hours, 8 miles from Gettysburg, in order to let the passenger cars pass us. Several of our company left the train in quest of supper. We found a house where a lady promised to give us supper for 50 cents each. As we were doing full justice to her supper, the train started. We left in a hurry and did not have time to pay for our meal. I don't suppose she gave us her blessing. June 21st, we reached Petersburg, Virginia, this morning at 2:30, and had barely laid down with a brick wall for my pillow when breakfast was announced in the shape of Mac Sample, who told us where we could get it. I ran the blockade with cats and went to see Mike Ettlinger. He was not at home. Afterward, we met Vortheim, and we all went again and got something good to eat. We then returned to our regiment, which is the 53rd North Carolina Regiment Infantry, Colonel William Owens, commander. We are enlisted for 3 years, or the war. We fell in line and marched to our camp, which is on Dunn's Hill, just outside of the city. June 22nd, nothing new. June 23rd, moved our camp 2 miles up the road toward Richmond. It is a very bad camp, low ground and muddy, but there is a factory here and plenty of girls to make up for the damp ground. June 24th, we had a drill today and went to town to see some friends. June 25th, reported fighting near Richmond. June 26th, we received marching orders this morning. The long roll beat at 1 in the night. We marched 4 miles on to Richmond, where we met some wounded of our army that had been injured at the Point of Rocks. We got to this place after marching all night, too late for the Yanks. They had gone. We stayed here until the 28th, then marched to Drury's Bluff, 20 miles from Petersburg. June 29th, arrived at Drury's Bluff this morning. Here we met our brigade, commanded by General Daniels. The brigade has 5 regiments, all North Carolina troops, composed of the 43rd, 53rd, 32nd, 45th, and the 2nd North Carolina battalions. When we got to our brigade, we were left at Drury's Bluff, and the brigade marched on to Richmond, and we stayed here until the 30th. June 30th, heard firing at Richmond. We are 8 miles from there and in reserve. July 1st, there is nothing new, only we can see the lines of battle over the river. They are still fighting around Richmond. July 4th, this is the day the Yankee General, McClellan, promised to eat dinner in our capital. He did not, but numbers of his command did. That is, in our prisons. But they did not get any turkey. July 6th, we got orders to march this morning. left here with 2 days' rations of cornmeal and bacon in our haversacks. We got to Petersburg in the evening, 15 miles after a hard march. It is very warm, and we did not rest on the way, as it was a forced march. We camped on Dunn's Hill. July 7th, we returned to our factory girls again. All okay, you bet. July 27th, had a few friends visit us from home and moved camp twice. Tonight we were ordered to fall in line, went to Petersburg, and there took the cars for Weldon. On the road, a dreadful accident occurred. On the flat car that we were on, a captain of the Navy with us had his leg cut off by a sheet of iron flying off the flat. Lieutenant McMatthews, Henry Wertheim, and myself were knocked down, but not badly hurt. The captain died 2 days after. July 31st, up to this time, there is nothing new. We are camped at Weldon, August 1st, from date to the 4th, nothing. We have a good camp. August 5th, we received marching orders today. We embarked on the train at Weldon, went down the Seaboard Road a distance of 25 miles, and marched from there to Roberts Chapel. Our company and Company D were the only ones that went. We got there at 10 o'clock at night and lay in the woods until morning. August 6th, we fell in line and returned. We marched to Boykins and took the cars to our regiment again. This expedition was to capture Yankees that are stealing Negroes. When we got there, they had left. Up to August 19th, nothing new. We have a very good time here by ourselves, get plenty to eat from the ladies, and visit them whenever we can get out of camp. August 20th, left here at 6 p.m. and arrived at Petersburg at 3 o'clock in the morning. Took the same bed that I had the last time, the sidewalk, and the wall for my pillow. Katz, Hugh Sample, Bat Harry, Lieutenant Belk, and some others were left behind, sick. August 21st, left at 4 a.m. and arrived in Richmond at 6 p.m., marched to Camp Lee, 2 miles from the city, and put up any tent we could get hold of, as it was raining very hard and too dark to see. We are all okay now. August 22, Sam Oppenheim, of the 44th North Carolina Regiment, an old comrade of the 1st North Carolina Regiment, came to see me. He is stationed on the other side of the city. August 23rd, went uptown to see my brother Morris of the 44th Georgia Regiment, but his regiment had already gone to Gordonsville, so I returned to camp. August 26th, up to date, did not get half enough to eat. August 27th, 3 of our companies got Enfield rifles today. August 28th, ordered to Drury's Bluff. We left Richmond at 8 p.m. and got there at 2 a.m. We are camping on the old oat patch near our former camp. August 29th, Lieutenant Belk, whom we left at Weldon sick, returned to us today. August 30th, our company went to work today throwing up breastworks. August 31st, still digging dirt. September 1st, Wertheim and myself went to Halfway Station to get a box that was sent to us from home, but it did not come. September 9th, up to today, nothing new. Our regiment was paid off today, we receiving 1 month's wages, $11 for a private, which I have the honor to be. September 18th, nothing new, only plenty of bad weather and hard work. We received marching orders at 9 a.m. We arrived in Petersburg at 5 p.m. Saw several friends there. Left Petersburg at 8 o'clock that night in cars for Wakefield. Arrived there at 11 a.m. September 19th. Left Wakefield at 9 p.m. and marched 20 miles. Lay in the woods without shelter, and it raining very hard. Therefore, didn't need to wash myself in the morning. September 20th, resumed our march at 6 o'clock this morning. Arrived at Black's Church after 3 hours' march, then turned about and tramped 9 miles and camped for the night at Joiner's Church. September 21st, left here at 6 p.m., marched 9 miles, and halted for dinner. Our company being rear guard of the brigade, we had a hard time of it, as the roads are very muddy, and we had to keep up all the stragglers. We reached Wakefield at 5 a.m. and lay in the woods and mud for the night. September 22nd, we lay here all day. Cars came for us from Petersburg tonight and took us back. Got there at 12 at night, marched 1 mile, and camped for the night. September 23rd, left here this morning at 10 o'clock and got to our old camp at 4 o'clock this evening. This expedition was to strengthen Longstreet's forces near Suffolk. We got there after he was relieved and the siege of Suffolk abandoned. September 27th, up to today, nothing new. Only today is my new year, the Jewish New Year. October. This month passed off with nothing new, except Katz returned on the 7th and Donau was discharged. We are still on our old camp. November 5th. There is nothing for me to write. Today, Vordheim and myself went to Petersburg to get a box that was sent from home, and while there, we had a very good time. November 6th, we commenced to put up winter quarters today. It is very cold and sleeting. November 7th, it commenced to snow this morning at 6 o'clock and continued until 1 in the afternoon. It is 3 inches deep. We got some whiskey into camp, which tasted very good and made us forget the cold. The balance of this month passed off very quietly. We are hard at work on our winter huts. December 1st and 2, we moved into our winter quarters. They are very good and strong. There are 10 men in each hut. December 3rd, Katz and myself went to Petersburg today. We met with friends, and the consequence you can imagine. The headache we had next day was caused by too much whiskey. December 8th, my birthday today. I am a man 21 years old, but I must say that I have been doing a man's duty before I was 21. Providing a soldier's duty is a man's. I spent today in bringing mud to our palace for a fireplace. December 13th. There was nothing to record up to the 13th, but today had division review from 9 a.m. until 5 p.m. December 14th, it's rumored that we will leave Virginia for North Carolina. December 15th, sure enough, got orders to cook 5 days' rations. We started at 2 a.m. and got to Petersburg at 8 o'clock that night. I ran the blockade and went uptown and stayed all night and had a very good time. December 16th, I returned this morning and was not missed. We left here with the cars at 8 a.m. and got to Weldon at 3 p.m. on the 17th. December 17th, lay in an old field until 8 p.m. and suffered a great deal from cold. We left here on flat cars and rode all night on them. We arrived at Goldsboro at 10 a.m. on the 18th. The ladies on the road, especially those at Wilson, were very kind to us. They gave us plenty to eat, which we were very much in need of. December 18th. We marched through town and lay all night in an open field without tents. It is certainly bitter cold. The only fires we could make were from the fence rails, as the woods were too far for us to get to. December 19th. We got away from the open field at 12 noon and went 2 miles out of town and camped in the woods. We met the Bethel Regiment today. I met quite a number of old friends and comrades of my old company. We compared notes on soldiering. We came to the conclusion that at Yorktown we were playing soldier, but now there is no play in it. We are expecting a fight every hour. December 20th, went uptown today on French leave, and when I returned was put on guard duty for going. December 21st, I went to the creek to wash my clothing and myself, and when I got back the water had frozen on my head, so that I was obliged to hold my head by the fire so as to thaw it out. Wertheim's eyes are so bad that he can hardly see. Sam Wilson broke his shoulder blade. December 25th. There is nothing new up to today, Christmas. We moved our camp a little piece. Eigenbrunn came to see us today from home and brought me a splendid cake from Miss Clara File. This is certainly a hard Christmas for us, bitter cold, raining and snowing all the time, and we have no tents. The only shelter we have is a blanket spread over a few poles, and we gather leaves and put them in that shelter for a bed. December 26th, I got vaccinated today by Captain Harvey White. It was raining very hard, and we all are as wet as dish rags. December 31st, and all is quiet up to today, the last of the year. It is still very cold. January 1st, 1863. This month we have done nothing but move our camp once and drill. Had to send all our baggage away. Hereafter, nothing more will be hauled for us in wagons. There are rumors flying about that we will soon leave here. February 1st and Sukkot. There is nothing new, but cold, cold, cold. February 4th, this morning, at 4 o'clock, we were woken up by the pleasant sound of the long roll. We were ordered to get ready to march. It is very cold, snow 9 inches deep. We lay in Goldsboro until noon, expecting to get cars to take us away, but were then told we would have to march to Kinston. We took up our line of march at 3 in the evening and halted at dark. It is truly awful. The snow is very deep and as cold as thunder. We marched 8 miles without resting. We then fixed our bed in the snow and stole fodder for a bed and rails to make a fire. We took snow, put it in our kettles, and made coffee. When I say coffee, I mean Confederate coffee, parched corn. That is our coffee. Ate our cornbread and bacon, and retired to our couches and slept as good, if not better, than Abe Lincoln. February 5th. Resumed our promenade at 7 this morning, and for a change, it is raining hard. Therefore, the snow is melting. Consequently, the roads are nice and soft. Halted at 3 this evening, still raining. We made ourselves as comfortable as possible, made a good fire to dry ourselves by, but the worst of it is we have no rations, and the wagons are behind. We went to sleep in our wet clothing, with a cup of coffee as our supper. It rained and snowed all night. February 6th, nothing to eat yet. Wertheim, W., Eagle, and myself went out foraging to buy something to eat. We got to one house, and there was no one at home, but in the yard there were 2 chickens, which we captured, for we were afraid they would bite us. We went to the next house and ate our breakfast. One of the ladies asked us where we got those chickens. I told her that we bought them at the house before we got there. She told us she lived there and that there was nobody at home. I then told her the truth, paid her for them, and left. The next house we got to, we bought a ham, a peck of meal, a peck of sweet potatoes, and some turnips. We took dinner in this house. We then returned to camp. We had a good reception from our mess, as they had still nothing to eat. February 7th, we could not march yesterday, as the streams were too high from the recent rains and snow. We left today at 12 noon and got 1 day's rations, hard enough to fell a bull. Marched on the railroad track all the afternoon. The main road was impassable. We got to Kinston at 4 in the afternoon and made camp in a swamp 2.5 miles out of town. We had nothing to eat, but slept good for all that. February 8th, Wertheim and myself went uptown to get something to eat. We got cornbread and bacon. On our road back to camp, we bought 4 more dodgers of cornbread and gave it to our mess companions who did not go uptown. Our regiment moved on the other side of town in an old pine thicket. February 9th, we established a regular camp here. This last march has been a very hard one and only a distance of 30 miles, but it took us from Wednesday to Saturday through snow, rain, and mud ankle deep and without rations. Kinston is a perfect ruin, as the Yankees have destroyed everything they could barely touch, but it must at one time have been a very pretty town. But now, nothing scarcely but chimneys are left to show how the Yankees are trying to reconstruct the Union. February 13th. Nothing new. We have been fixing our camps. Our company has built log huts from 2 to 3 feet high, and then put our tents over them, building a chimney to each hut or tent, and we are very comfortable. We got orders to cook 2 days' rations and be ready to march in 2 hours, but did not have to go. In fact, nothing new until the 25th. February 25th, Henry Wardheim was sent home on a sick furlough, as he is very bad off. February 26th, 2 men out of our regiment were whipped for desertion. They were undressed all but pants and shoes, tied to a post, and each given 39 lashes on their bare backs. The balance of this month, nothing new, only very cold. March 5th, up to today, there is nothing worth recording, although we are getting black as Negroes on account of our burning green pine. March 6th, several of us out of our company went to Kinston and the battlefield. The Yankees are very poorly buried, as we saw several heads, hands, and feet sticking out of the ground where the rain had washed the dirt off them. March 12th. We have had orders several times for the last 6 days to march, and a part of our brigade has had a fight. But this morning, we took up our march at 5 o'clock. I saw General D.H. Hill on the road and spoke to him as well as his adjutant. They are friends from home and comrades of our 1st North Carolina Regiment. We marched 20 miles and halted for the night, lay in line of battle all night with arms by our side. March 13th, resumed our march at 8 this morning, got 8 miles when we got to our extreme picket posts. They told us the Yankees were 1 mile and a quarter from us. Then we marched half a mile farther when our artillery commenced the fight. It kept on all day, but very light. We drove in their pickets and advanced our line until dark. We are 8 miles from New Bern, marched 11 miles. March 14th, this morning at daybreak, cannonading was heard by us from General Pettigrew's line, which is on our left flank. We immediately fell into line of battle. Our artillery opened fire. Then we infantry advanced our line on the Yankees. We halted in an old field and had for a breastwork a rail fence. We fought for 4 hours, hot at times. We had a number killed and wounded. The enemy fell back on their stronghold, New Bern. This battle is called the Battle of Deep Gully, as it was fought on that stream. We then took up our march again for Kinston. We got 11 miles and halted for the night. Our company was the rear guard of the brigade. March 15th, lay here all day with 2 crackers for our rations, and these we got at night. March 16th, a picket came in this morning and reported the enemy advancing. We were put in line of battle to receive them, and after marching 1 mile up the road to get to our brigade, we were put at the extreme left of our line and made breastworks out of rotten logs. Stayed here 1 hour when another picket came and reported them 10 miles away. So we resumed our march for camp and got there at 7 o'clock. 21 miles today. Tom Nodder, Aaron Katz, and myself pressed into service today a donkey and a cart with a Negro who took us to Kinston. Each of us drove at times, and I was fortunate enough to stall in a mud hole. We had to get out and lift the cart and donkey to dry ground again. Thus ends the march and fight at Deep Gully. March 20th. Cats went home today on a furlough. Nothing new up to the 23rd. March 23rd. We had a man whipped today in our regiment for desertion. March 24th. Commenced marching this morning. Got 17 miles and halted. Lay here in the woods until the 27th. Went to several houses and had a good time with ladies and eatables up to the 29th. March 29th. Here still, but positively don't know where we are. March 30th. Left this morning at 5 o'clock, marched 15 miles, waded clay-bottom swamps 3/4 of a mile long. This is in Pitt County, North Carolina. We then camped in the woods and made fires to dry ourselves with. March 31st. Left at 7 this morning, marched 6 miles, waded several creeks, and arrived at Swift Creek at 11. This is a small village. We camp here for the night. April 1st. Left here on the Little Washington Dirt Road at 7 this morning, marched 17 miles, and halted 3 miles from Washington. This is a Yankee post. Heard firing all day, and we are ordered to keep our cartridge boxes on us and our guns by our sides, as we may move any moment. April 2nd. Our regiment was sent on picket this morning at daylight, 1 mile from camp and 2 miles from the enemy. Companies B and G are on the left, A and D on the right, F and I in the center. We are within hailing distance of the Yankee line of pickets. There is not much firing. Tom Teater and I are on the color guard. We have nothing to do if we don't want to, except stay with the colors. So this evening at 4 o'clock, we went as near the Yankees as we dared to see the town of Washington. Saw the place, their breastworks, and their camps very plainly. We then returned and slept on our arms all night. That is, we tried to sleep, but could not, for the infernal noise from the owls that are in the swamps around us. April 3rd, Little Washington is on Tar River, and as one of the Yankee gunboats was trying to get in, one of our cannon gave them a ball, which caused heavy firing all day, and, in fact, the shells came very close to our flag, which made us dodge. Pretty smart. We have Washington besieged. At 8 o'clock tonight, Colonel Owens called for volunteers to go as near the Yankees as they could to see what they were doing. Tom, Trotter, and myself went. We got to within 200 yards of Washington when we were compelled to halt, as we were near the bridge where we could hear the Yankee sentinels walking their beats very plainly. So we returned to camp and reported. April 4th. Firing at intervals all day. The reserve was sent to the river to support our artillery. The colors went with them. It is raining hard. We lay in line 2.5 hours in an old field. It is very cold. The Yankees are firing all the time. Then the 43rd Regiment came and relieved us. Katz came in today and reported Henry Wertheim dead. He died Monday, March 30th. April 5th. Everything is quiet on our line today. April 6th. A little firing today. Went to the river to throw up breastworks. Worked all night. We put up one piece of cannon right on the riverbank, but had to work all night in the swamp to do so. We carried sandbags for breastworks to protect the artillerymen. April 7th. Today, the firing was very heavy. We hit the Yankee gunboat again today and made the dust fly out of their breastworks. April 8th. This morning, Tom Teater, Katz, and myself went with Captain White to meet 3 Yankees with a flag of truce, but they would not come halfway, so Colonel Owens ordered us back. We 3, went to our siege gun and saw the town very plainly. They fired at us while we were there. The fire was returned, and we could see the Yankees dodge. April 9th, We were relieved this morning by the 32nd Regiment and marched to Bellevue, where the balance of our brigade is. At 11 o'clock tonight we were ordered to march. We went 15 miles. There was a fight there today. Marched all night without resting. April 10th. Got to our line at 6 this morning. The Yankees had fallen back. They had 19 regiments and 21 pieces of artillery. They left in a hurry. One of their colonels was killed, and I don't know how many men. We left Blount Creek Bridge at 4 this evening, marched 9 miles on our way back to Bellevue. We met the Bethel Regiment, and I met several friends of my old company. April 13. Up to date, they are firing at Fort Hill and Washington all the time. April 14th. Nothing. April 15th. Raining very hard. We have a blanket spread over poles to keep us dry. We got orders to march this evening. Went 5 miles through mud and water, and it raining like fury. I shall long remember this march, as well as a few others of my company. We fell in the mud several times, and were certainly beautiful objects to look at with our suits of mud, for we were completely covered with it. April 16th. At 7 this morning we resumed our march, went 2 miles, halted a half hour, then turned about and went to our old camp, but again were ordered back at 2 p.m. to our picket posts 1 mile from Washington. As we got there, the Yankees gave us a good reception in shot, shell, and musketry, but all the damage they did was to rail fences and perhaps a few owls that are plentiful in the swamps. Our line is on the edge of the swamp. They shelled heavy all night, but no lives were lost on our side. At 8 p.m., our pickets fired on them, but they did not respond. We lay here until 2 at night, when we went to Bellevue under fire from the enemy. We stayed here the balance of the night. April 17th. At daylight this morning, our company was ordered to go on picket at Shingle Landing, 5 miles from Bellevue. I asked Colonel Moorhead to let me go with them, but he refused and said I should stay with the colors, but I went without his permission. In a march of 5 miles we waded through 3 miles of swamp knee-deep. We are in a devil of a position. The enemy can cut us off from our command easily, as we cannot return except through the swamp, which of course would be very slow progress. At 4 this evening we were recalled and met our regiment on the march and fell in. Colonel Moorhead didn't miss me from the colors. We marched 7 miles and halted for the night. April 18th, left at 9 this morning and got to Greenville at 5 o'clock, 11 miles. This is a fine country, but hilly and hard marching. This is the end of the siege of Washington. We were there 16 days, but couldn't draw the enemy out of their works. April 19th. Nothing today but rest, which we needed very much. April 20th. Went on picket this morning to the south side of the town, across the river, but did not go on picket. Our company and Company G supported 2 pieces of artillery. I was again refused permission by Moorhead to go with my company, but I went all the same. April 21st, nothing doing. April 22, ordered to our brigade at 12 noon. April 23, raining hard all day and night. No shelter. We got as wet as drowned cats. April 24th, this morning I was detailed by Colonel Owens to go to Wilson, North Carolina, to get the baggage for our officers. Left at 3 a.m., got to Tarboro at 7 p.m. This is a very pretty town. Stayed here until 3 and took the cars to Rocky Mount. Got there at 5, left at 7, and got to Wilson at 8 on the morning of the 25th. Got my baggage and left at 3 p.m. Arrived at Rocky Mount at 4. Saw some fun with a girl and an old woman. The young one had stolen a petticoat from the old one, and was compelled to take it off and return it in the presence of at least 50 men. Left at 8, got to Tarboro at 9:15. April 26th, left here this morning and took the same route that I came by. Our boat got to Greenville at 10 a.m. My regiment, in my absence, has gone 12 miles across the river to a place called Pactolus. I followed them in a buggy and got there at 4 p.m. April 27th, left here at 3 this morning, got to Greenville at 6 a.m., stayed a quarter of an hour, and marched to the crossroads 9 miles from town. Got there at 6 p.m. April 28th, turned about this morning at 7, got to Greenville at 10, and went to our former camp, then got orders to return to Pactolus in the morning. April 29th, we left this morning. The regiment was 2 miles on the road when we got orders to return, but Tom Theater and myself marched ahead of the regiment and had got 4 miles before we had found out that the regiment was not in our rear. When we got back, we were laughed at for our smartness. April 30th, lay in camp and rested. May 1st, we left here this morning at 30 minutes after 4 for Kinston, marched 11 miles without halting. May 2nd, resumed our march at 6 a.m. and reached Kinston at 8 p.m., 24 miles today. May 3rd, we camped 1 mile from town. We left here on the 25th day of March and returned May 2nd, went through a campaign of 27 days. In that time, we had Washington besieged 16 days. The balance of the time, we were marching and counter-marching in all kinds of weather, and very often without anything to eat. May 4th and 5, nothing. May 6th, left here at 12 noon for Core Creek, marched 9 miles and halted. Raining hard, and we got well soaked. The rain ran down our faces all night, so we did not have to wash our faces on the morning of the 7th. May 7th, resumed our march at 8 a.m., got 10 miles, and halted within 1 mile of the creek. We waded Gum Swamp, stayed there 3 hours and turned about, marched 9 miles tonight. This expedition was to tear up the new Berne and Kinston Railroad and also bring some ladies and old men out of the Yankee lines, for they had been driven out of New Berne. There were about 70 in all. They were, of course, Southern people who would not take the oath of allegiance to the United States government and therefore were driven out of their homes. May 8th, we left here at 8 a.m. to return to Kinston and got there at 3 p.m., 10 miles. Awful road. Waded through mud, water, and sand the whole way. My feet are cut up pretty badly. May 9 and 10, resting. May 11th, we moved our camp to the north side of town. Then we were marched to an open field this afternoon and drawn up in line to see 2 men shot for desertion. After they were shot, we marched by them and saw one was hit 6 times and the other 4. Their coffins were by their sides, right close to their graves, so that they could see it all. May 17th, up to today, nothing. But this morning, at 4, we were ordered to cook up all our rations and be ready to march in 1 hour. We left Kinston by rail at 12 noon, got to Goldsboro at 3, went through to Weldon, left here at 5 p.m., and got to Petersburg, Virginia on the morning of the 18th, left there at 6 p.m. Katz and myself went uptown, ate 2 suppers, had a very good time while in town. We camped all night on Dunn's Hill. May 19th, left here at 5 this morning, got to Richmond at 8, and are stationed at Camp Lee. We will have to march to Fredericksburg. Our brigade is transferred to the Army of Northern Virginia. William Cochran, myself, and several of our company ran the blockade tonight, went uptown to a theater, and got back to camp at 2 o'clock. We had a fine time while uptown. May 21st, left this morning, marched 21 miles, halted at 5:30. It is a very hilly country, warm and dusty. May 22nd, marched 20 miles today and halted at 6 p.m. May 23rd, marched 15 miles and halted. On our today's march, we saw any amount of dead horses, which did not smell altogether like cologne. May 24th, lay here all day, it being Sunday. May 25, resumed our march this morning at 6, got 6 miles, and halted. We pitched our camp here on a hill, 2 miles from Fredericksburg. May 26 and 27, rested. I went to see my brother Morris, who belongs to Doles's brigade, 44th Georgia Regiment. Did not see him, as he was on picket. May 28th, Morris came to see me today. We are both in the same division and corps. Our corps is commanded by General Ewell. May 29th, had a general review today. General Rhodes is our division commander. He and General Lee reviewed us. I see a great change in the appearance of General Lee. He looks so much older than when I saw him at Yorktown. Then his hair was black. Now he is a gray-headed old man. We have 5 brigades in our division. The commander of my brigade is General Daniels of North Carolina. 1 brigade of Georgians is commanded by General Doles. Iverson of North Carolina has another brigade. Also, General Ramseur of North Carolina has a brigade, and General Battle of Alabama has a brigade. Our corps is composed of 3 divisions, ours by General Rhodes, one by General Early, and the other by General A. Johnson. May 30th, we see the Yankees in balloons every day, reconnoitering our lines. June 1st, and 2 nothing new. June 3rd, saw my brother Morris several times. June 4th, got orders to cook 3 days' rations immediately. We left our camp at 3 this morning, marched 14 miles, and halted. We march 1 hour and rest 10 minutes. June 5th, marched until 4 o'clock this evening, 20 miles today. June 6th, marched 5 miles and halted for the day. June 7th, left at 5 a.m., got to Culpeper Courthouse at 3 p.m., and marched 4 miles on the east side of town, 20 miles today. We waded Rapidan River, which is 40 yards wide, 2 feet deep, and very swift. June 8th, stayed here all day. June 9th, we were ordered to Beverly Ford to support General Jeb Stuart, who is engaging the Yankees, and they are having a very hard cavalry fight. Got here in a roundabout way and formed in line of battle with 2 lines of skirmishers in front. When we got to the Army of Northern Virginia, we were told that each company must furnish 1 skirmisher out of every 6 men, and there was a call for volunteers for that service. So I left the colors and went as a skirmisher whose duty it is, in time of battle, to go in front of the line and reconnoiter and engage the enemy until a general engagement. Then we fall in line with the balance of the army. As soon as the enemy saw that the cavalry were reinforced by infantry, they fell back. This was altogether a cavalry fight. We took quite a number of prisoners and camped 2 miles from the battlefield. We marched 12 miles today. June 10th, they left here at 2 p.m., marched until 8 o'clock tonight, 12 miles. June 11th, resumed our march at 5 a.m., passed over 3 creeks that form the Rappahannock River, passed through a town called Flint Hill, and camped 1 mile on the north side of the town. Marched 16 miles today. June 12th, left at 5 a.m., marched over part of the Blue Ridge, and crossed the head of the Rappahannock River, 18 miles today. We marched through Front Royal, where the ladies treated us very well, camped 1 mile north side of town, and waded the Shenandoah, both prongs. June 3rd, marched to Berryville, a Yankee post. Heard firing before we got there. We took the left flank a half mile this side of town and marched to the Winchester Turnpike. We then formed in line of battle with sharpshooters in front. We gave the rebel yell and charged, but when we got to their breastworks the birds had flown. They did not take their nests with them. Their camp, with all their cooking utensils, quartermaster, and commissary stores were all left in our hands. They were evidently cooking a meal, for plenty of pots full of eatables were still on the fire when we got into their camp. We ate up all we could, filled our haversacks, and pushed on 4 miles farther and halted for the night. It is raining very hard, and there is, of course, no shelter for us. June 14th, left at 7 a.m., passed through Smithfield and Bunker Hill. The Yankees are still retreating in our front, on their way to Martinsburg, our own destination. We got there about 9 o'clock at night and drove them through the town, and in fact we felt like driving the devil out of his stronghold, as this was a very warm day. We had to march in quick time all day, a distance of 25 miles. Therefore, we were not in the best of humor. This is a good-sized town. June 15th, left here at 11 a.m., and got to the Potomac River at dusk, a distance of 12 miles. We have as yet been very fortunate, have driven the enemy from the Rapidan to the Potomac, captured prisoners, arms, camps, quartermaster, and commissary stores, and the Yankees were at any moment as strong in numbers as we, with the advantage of having breastworks to fight behind. Still, they always ran at our appearance. June 16th, resting today. June 17th, we crossed the Potomac River today at 1 p.m. and camped in Williamsport, Maryland, on the banks of the Potomac, 2 miles today. The river is knee-deep. June 8th, the people are mixed in their sympathies, some Confederates and some Yankees. June 19th, left at 8 a.m., and 7 miles took us to Hagerstown, Maryland. Here the men greeted us very shabbily, but the ladies quite the reverse. This town has 5,000 inhabitants and is a very pretty town. We camped on the Antietam, June 20th and 21, raining hard. June 22nd, left this morning at 8 o'clock, got to Middleburg, Pennsylvania at 11, passed through it, and got to Greencastle at 1:30. 11 miles today. The people seemed downhearted and showed their hatred to us by their glum looks and silence, and I am willing to swear that no prayers will be offered in this town for us poor, ragged rebels. June 23rd, here all day. Tom Teater and myself went out to buy something to eat, but when we came to a house, they would close their doors in our face or let us knock and not open. We got the ear of 1 or 2 ladies, and after proving to them that we were not wild animals nor thieves, they gave us what we wanted, but would not take pay for anything. June 24th, left here this morning, got to Chambersburg at 12 noon, went 3 miles on the north side of town on picket, 14 miles today. We passed through Marion, a small village. Chambersburg is a very fine place, 10,000 inhabitants, but nary a smile greeted us as we marched through town. There are plenty of men here, a pity they are not rebels and in our ranks. This city is in Franklin County, Cumberland Valley. We were woken up in the middle of the night and marched off, waded a river which was so cold that it woke us up. Passed through Greenville today at dawn. This town has, I should judge, about 5,000 inhabitants. 9 miles today. June 25th, marched on, passed through Leesburg, Canada, Hawkinsville, and Centerville, all small villages. We got to Carlisle, Pennsylvania, at sundown. Marched 21 miles today. This city is certainly a beautiful place. It has 8,000 inhabitants, and we were treated very well by the ladies. They thought we would do as their soldiers do, burn every place we passed through. But when we told them the strict orders of General Lee, they were rejoiced. Our regiment was provost guard in the city, but were relieved by the 21st Georgia Regiment, and we went to camp at the U.S. Barracks. So far, we have lived very well in the enemy's country. We stayed here until the 30th, when we took the Baltimore Pike Road, crossed South Mountain at Holly Gap, passed through Papertown and Petersburg. We then left the Pike and took the Gettysburg Road 17 miles today. This has been a hard day for us, as we were the rear guard of the division, and it was very hot, close, and very dusty, and a terrible job to keep the stragglers up. July 1st, 1863. We left camp at 6 a.m., passed through Heidlersburg and Middletown. At the latter place, we heard firing in the direction of Gettysburg. We were pushed forward after letting the wagon trains get in our rear. We got to Gettysburg at 1 p.m., 15 miles. We were drawn up in line of battle about 1 mile south of town and a little to the left of the Lutheran Seminary. We then advanced to the enemy's line of battle in double quick time. We had not gotten more than 50 paces when Norman of our company fell dead by my side. Katz was going to pick him up. I stopped him, as it is strictly forbidden for anyone to help take the dead or wounded off the field except the ambulance corps. We then crossed over a rail fence, where our Lieutenant McMatthews and Lieutenant Alexander were both wounded. That left us with a captain and 1 lieutenant. After this, we got into battle in earnest and lost in our company very heavily, both killed and wounded. This fight lasted 4 hours and a half, when at last we drove them clear out of town and took at least 3,000 prisoners. They also lost very heavily in killed and wounded, which all fell into our hands. After the fight, our company was ordered to pick up all straggling Yankees in town and bring them together to be brought to the rear as prisoners. One fellow I took up could not speak one word of English, and the first thing he asked me in German was, "Will I get my pay in prison?" After we had them all put up in a pen, we went to our regiment and rested. Major Iredell of our regiment came to me and shook my hand, and also complimented me for action in the fight. At dusk, I was about going to hunt up my brother Morris when he came to me. Thank God, we are both safe as yet. We lay all night among the dead Yankees, but they did not disturb our peaceful slumbers. July 2nd, our division was in reserve until dark, but our regiment was supporting a battery all day. We lost several killed and wounded, although we had no chance to fire, only lay by a battery of artillery and be shot at. The caisson of the battery we were supporting was blown up, and we got a good sprinkling of the wood from it. Just at dark, we were sent to the front under terrible cannonading. Still, it was certainly a beautiful sight. It being dark, we could see the cannon vomit forth fire. Our company had to cross a rail fence. It gave way, and several of our boys were hurt by others walking over them. We lay down here a short time, in fact no longer than 10 minutes, when I positively fell asleep. The cannonading did not disturb me. One of the boys shook me and told me Katz was wounded by a piece of a shell striking him on the side, and he was sent to the rear. We went on to the Baltimore Turnpike until 3 in the morning of the 3rd, July 1st, when under a very heavy fire we were ordered on Culp's Hill to the support of General A. Johnson. Here we stayed all day. No, here, I may say, we melted away. We were on the brow of one hill, the enemy on the brow of another. We charged on them several times, but of course, running down our hill and then to get to them was impossible, and every time we attempted it, we came back leaving some of our comrades behind. Here, our Lieutenant Belt lost his arm. We have now, in our company, a captain. All of our lieutenants are wounded. We fought here until 7 p.m., when what was left of us was withdrawn and taken to the first day's battlefield. At the commencement of this fight, our brigade was the strongest in our division, but she is not now. We lost the most men, for we were in the fight all the time, and I have it from Colonel Owens that our regiment lost the most in the brigade. I know that our company went into the fight with 60 men. When we left Culp's Hill, There were 16 of us that answered to the roll call. The balance were all killed and wounded. There were 12 sharpshooters in our company, and now John Cochran and myself are the only ones that are left. This day none will forget that participated in the fight. It was truly awful how fast, how very fast did our poor boys fall by our sides, almost as fast as the leaves that fell as cannon and musket balls hit them as they flew on their deadly errand. You could see one with his head shot off, others cut in two, then one with his brain oozing out, one with his leg off, others shot through the heart. Then you would hear some poor friend or foe crying for water, or for God's sake to kill him. You would see some of your comrades, shot through the leg, lying between the lines, asking his friends to take him out, but no one could get to his relief, and you would have to leave him there, perhaps to die, or, at best, to become a prisoner. Our brigade was the only one that was sent to Culp's Hill to support General Johnson. In our rapid firing today, my gun became so hot that the ramrod would not come out, so I shot it at the Yankees and picked up a gun from the ground, a gun that some poor comrade dropped after being shot. I wonder if it hit a Yankee. If so, I pity him. Our regiment was in a very exposed position at one time today, and our General Daniels ordered a courier of his to bring us from the hill. He was killed before he got to us. The general sent another. He was also killed before he reached us. Then General Daniels would not order anyone, but called for volunteers. Captain Ed Stitt of Charlotte, one of his aides, responded, and he took us out of the exposed position. July 4th, we lay on the battlefield of the first day, this, the 4th of July. No fighting today, but we are burying the dead. They have been lying on the field in the sun since the first day's fight, it being dusty and hot. The dead smell terribly. The funny part of it is, the Yankees have all turned black. Several of our company, wounded, have died. Katz is getting along all right. The battle is over, and although we did not succeed in pushing the enemy out of their strong position, I am sure they have not anything to boast about. They have lost at least as many in killed and wounded as we have. We have taken more prisoners from them than they have from us. If that is not the case, why did they lay still all today and see our army going to the rear? An army that has gained a great victory follows it up while its enemy is badly crippled. But Meade, their commander, knows he has had as much as he gave, at least, if not more. As yet, I have not heard a word from my brother Morris since the first day's fight. July 5th, left this morning at 5 o'clock, only marched 10 miles today, the enemy being in our rear and skirmishing very strong. July 6th, our company was ordered out as skirmishers today, as our regular skirmish corps was broken up during the fight. We were the rear of the army, and therefore had a very hard job before us. Fighting all day and falling back, we certainly had fun. We were close enough to the enemy to hear their commands. We would hold them in check and give them a few rounds, then fall back again. They would then advance until we would make a stand, fight again, and so it was until we reached Fairfield, 6 miles from Gettysburg. I don't think there were many lost on either side in this skirmish. We crossed South Mountain at Monterey Gap. When we came to the above town, I pressed into service a citizen's coat in this way. We were ordered to rest, and, as usual, we would sit on fences and lie about the road. Some of the boys jumped on an old hog pen. It broke through. They fell in, and, lo and behold, there were boxes of clothing, dresses, shawls, blankets, and, in fact, everything in the line of wearing apparel. I, being a little fellow, crawled through some of the boys' legs and captured the coat. If the fool citizen would have left his things in his house, they would have been safe, but to put it in our way was too much for us to leave behind. We also passed through Waynesboro and Leitersburg and halted in Hagerstown, Maryland on the evening of the 7th. We marched yesterday and all night up to 11 o'clock, 24 miles. Julie ate, we are resting, and goodness knows we need it very much. I sold my coat for $20 and a gray jacket. We lost in the last fight. In our company, 11 killed and 26 wounded. 3 of the latter will not live, and 9 of our number became prisoners, besides the wounded. Our 3 lieutenants are all wounded and prisoners. Katz is also a prisoner. Nothing further up to the 10th. July 10th, move 4.5 miles on the other side of town. We have fortified ourselves here. July 11th East orders read out today from our father, R. E. Lee, that we would fight the enemy once more on their own soil, as they were now in our front. That order got to them and fulfilled its mission, as we were then on our way to the Potomac, they still thinking we could not cross the river because the river was very high from the recent rains, and we had but one pontoon bridge. At 10 of the night, we formed in line of battle, got to our position when our regiment was ordered to support a battery. Lay on our arms all night. July 12th, went back to our brigade this morning, skirmishing very heavy on the left and center. July 13th, news came to us today that Vicksburg had fallen on the 4th. Heavy skirmishing, fighting all day. Our brigade again acted as the rear of our corps, our regiment being its rear. We started our retreat at dark and marched to Williamsport, 6 miles through mud and slush ankle deep and raining very hard. We marched 1 mile to the right of and crossed the Potomac at midnight after wading through the canal, which we destroyed. The river was up to my chin and very swift. We crossed in 4s for protection, as otherwise we could not have crossed. Our cartridge boxes we carried around our necks to keep the powder dry. On the south bank, tar was poured so that we would not slip back in the river, as the mud was very slick. J. Engel of our company was stuck in until some of the boys pulled him out. We went 6 miles further, and I honestly believe more of us were asleep on our night's march than awake. But still, all kept up, for the rear was prison. We then halted, made fire to dry ourselves, just as day was breaking on the morning of the 14th. July 14th, the roads are so bad that it is hard work to trudge along. I stuck in the mud several times and lost one shoe in a mud hole, but of course took it out again. One consolation we have got, it is raining so hard that the mud is washed off our clothing. Therefore, they were not soiled too bad. But the devil of it is there is no blacking to shine our shoes with. Marched 16 miles and halted. We are now, thank God, on Confederate soil. But oh, how many of our dear comrades have we left behind? We can never forget this campaign. We had hard marching, hard fighting, suffered hunger and privation, but our general officers were always with us to help the weary soldier carry his gun or let him ride. In a fight, they were with us to encourage. Many a general have I seen walk, and a poor sick private riding his horse, and our father Lee was scarcely ever out of sight when there was danger. We could not feel gloomy when we saw his old gray head uncovered as he would pass us on the march or be with us in a fight. I care not how weary or hungry we were. When we saw him, we gave that rebel yell, and hunger and wounds would be forgotten. July 15th, we marched 5 miles today and were compelled to halt, as our wagon trains had to get in our front. I and 2 of our mess killed 3 turkeys, took them with us to 1 mile from Martinsburg, Virginia, where we camped, and the bones of those turkeys were left behind. July 16th. Left this morning at 7. Marched to Darksville, 8 miles. July 17th. Raining very hard today, and we are resting. July 20th. Went on picket today, stayed there 1 hour, and was ordered back. Got to camp and found our brigade gone. We marched to Martinsburg, halted at 10 at night, 2 miles from town, 10 miles today. July 21st. Went through town at 5 this morning to the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad with Johnson's division and part of Hampton's Legion to tear up the railroad. We destroyed 6 miles of it and returned to our camp at Darksville, 15 miles today. July 22nd. Left this morning at 5, marched through Winchester, 3 miles, and halted. July 23rd. Left at 5 this morning, went through Front Royal, 17 miles today. Waded the south and north prongs of the Shenandoah River. We then took the road to Manassas Gap, marched 3 miles when we met the enemy and had brisk firing until dark. Their line is very strong. They advanced in 2 lines in very fine order. When they got within range of our guns, we opened on them, and they scattered like bluebirds. We had a beautiful view of this fight as we are on the mountain. Neither of the armies can move without being seen by the other. Our corps of sharpshooters has been formed again since a few days ago. We were sent to the support of the other corps. We were within 20 yards of the enemy's line until midnight, when we fell back in good order. July 24th, marched 2 miles up Chester Gap, when we were about faced, and marched through Front Royal again. We here took the Strasburg road at daylight. We resumed our march and halted at 3 in the evening. We have been on a forced march 3 days and nights, waded rivers, fought skirmishes, and marched in that time 45 miles. We are camped in an apple orchard in a village called Milford. July 25th. Left this morning at 7 o'clock, halted at 3 in the afternoon, 16 miles. July 26th. Rested today. William Eagle and myself went up the Blue Ridge to gather berries and were lost in the woods for 1 hour. July 27th. Left this morning at 5, crossed the Blue Ridge at Thornton Gap. We camped 1 mile from Sperryville. Marched 13 miles today. July 28th. Left at 6 this morning, marched 10 miles, and halted on the mountain. July 29th. Left at 7, marched until 3. Camped 1 mile from Madison Courthouse. Marched 10 miles today. July 30th. Still in camp. Hugh Sample and myself were out on a forage and milked a cow in his hat. The only thing we had. July 31st. We left here tonight, marched 7 miles, and halted. August 1st. Resumed our march at 4 this morning and got to Orange Courthouse, 14 miles. It is a very hot day, and there were several men fell dead on the road from sunstroke. We rested here until the 4th. August 4, left our camp, marched 3 miles, 1 mile on the south side of town. August 11th, nothing up to today. This, I suppose, is to be our regular camp, as we have commenced to drill again. August 12th, we had a very severe storm today, which killed 2 men and hurt several of our brigade. It tore up trees and played smash in general. August 23rd, they have commenced to give furloughs, 1 to every 2 companies. August 24th, was on guard this morning, but Sergeant Hugh Reed sent for me and detailed me, with some men out of every regiment in our brigade, to hunt deserters. See Wolfe and myself out of our company. We left camp at 3 this evening, marched 2 miles up the railroad, and took the cars to Gordonsville. Got there at 4. It is a small place, but one of importance, as all our supplies for the army from Richmond come from this station. August 25th, took the cars at 5 a.m. and got to Keswick a depot on the Staunton Road. We left here after staying 1 hour and took our posts in the woods. As we are about 20 men, with one lieutenant in command, we made no camp but stayed about here and reported every time there was any news about deserters. Wolf and myself went out in the country to houses that we were told harbored deserters. We passed ourselves off as such and were well received and got some valuable information. They told us that the deserters were in the woods. We then returned to our companions and got well soaked, as it was raining very hard. Stayed in a barn all night. August 26th, we stayed in the woods all day, but at night went out scouting for deserters, but did not find any. August 27th, returned at 7 this morning. Went out again at dark. Went through 4 houses of bad repute, but found not one deserter. Went 12 miles this night. August 28th, we moved this evening, and I stayed in a gentleman's house all night with Wolf. August 29th, returned to our companions this morning at 10 o'clock. August 30th, left at 5 in the morning. We hunted through the cliffs for several hours and caught one deserter. Several of our men and myself dined in a widow lady's house. There were quite a number of ladies there, and we had a very pleasant time. Then we went to Mr. Bell's and had supper there. From there we went to Mr. Wheeler's and stayed all night. August 31st, went to Mr. Watkins's, took dinner there, and stayed all day. Had a very pleasant time with his daughter, Miss Annie. September years. Today we went on a general hunt in full force. We went into a house where we suspected there was a deserter. We hunted through all the outbuildings, then went to the house, and the lady strongly denied there being anyone there, but wouldn't give us permission to look. We then searched the house, but found no one. I then proposed that we go in the loft. She objected again, but of course we were determined. It was pitch dark in the loft. We called in, but no answer came. I then proposed, in a loud voice so that if anyone was there they could hear me, that we fix bayonets and stick around and satisfy ourselves that no one was there. Still no answer. I then got in the loft, took my gun, and commenced sticking around. At last an answer came from the far corner that he would surrender. The way I got into the loft was, I being a little fellow and C. Wolf a tall man, they put me on his shoulder, and in that way I crawled in. We then left for camp, passed a church, and was in time to see a wedding. We drilled for the ladies and had a good time. September 2nd. On a hunt today, several of my comrades with myself came to a house, and the first thing we heard was, "Is there a Jew in your detachment that caught a deserter yesterday? They would like to see him," etc. At last one of the boys told them that I was the Jew. After that I had a very good time there, and in fact wherever I went I was received very kindly, and was very sorry to see on the 4th that orders came for us to return to our brigade. September 4th, marched to Keswick, and found that we would have to march to Gordonsville. Got there that night, 15 miles today. September 5th, left here at 7, got to brigade at 10 in the morning, and from the 24th of last month up to date, I certainly have seen the best time since the war. September 6th, our captain, Harvey White, returned to camp yesterday from a furlough. September 8th, we are getting ready for a corps review for tomorrow. September 9th, today we had a review. Present, General Lee, General Ewell, General Early, General Johnson, and General Rhodes of our corps, and General Hill, General J.E.B. Stuart, and smaller Fry of our army. It was certainly a grand scene. Nothing more up to the 14th. September 14th, left camp this morning at 7. Marched 12 miles and halted. Here firing in front on the Rapidan at Somerville Ford, here all night. September 15th, still some firing in front. We are in reserve. I went to see the fight. I saw the enemy very plainly, and thus I spent my New Year's Day. September 16th, today there was a man shot for desertion. 8 balls passed through him. The way this is conducted is, the brigade that he belongs to, or sometimes even the division, is drawn up in full sight of the doomed man. He is tied to a stake in front of his grave, which is already dug, and his coffin at his side. There is a squad of 12 men and 1 officer detailed to do the shooting. 11 of the guns are loaded. The guns are given to them by the officer, so that no man knows which gun is unloaded. The order is then given to fire. Thus ends the deserter's life. The brigade or division then marches around him so that every man can see his, the deserter's, end. September 17th, very little firing today. September 18th, raining hard all day and no tents. Left camp at 2 in the afternoon, marched 6 miles, halted at the river, and our regiment went on picket. It is still raining very hard, and we are as wet as drowned cats, and cold too, for we cannot make a fire in front of the enemy. If we did, they would have a good mark to shoot at. September 19th, we are at Moulton's Ford. September 20th, in speaking distance of the Yankees. September 21st, our regiment was relieved today by the 3rd Alabama of Battle's Brigade. September 22nd, I spoke and exchanged papers with a Yankee of the 7th Ohio Regiment. September 23rd, Day of Atonement, today. Nothing more. Up to the 26th, September 26th, we have built ourselves cabins in our camps. This evening, we went on picket. September 27th, the Yankees are very active today. Something is up. September 28th, our regiment is on picket. Will be relieved tomorrow. September 29th, all quiet today. Brother Morris returned from Richmond yesterday, where he has been for 10 days on a furlough. Before our Jewish New Year, there was an order read out from General Lee granting a furlough to each Israelite to go to Richmond for the holidays, if he so desired. I did not care to go. September 30th, we are shooting at the Yankees today for fun, as they are trying to steal sheep from the houses that are between our lines. October 1st, went on picket at 4 this afternoon and was roused up in the night to intercept a spy who is in our lines and is expecting to cross, but we did not see him, for it was so dark we could see nothing. October 2nd, relieved today, very wet and disagreeable weather, nothing new up to the 9th. October 9th, left camp at 4 this evening and halted on the morning of the 10th at 1 o'clock when we caught up with our brigade, marched 12 miles on a very muddy road and fell into several holes. We left again very early this morning and marched 20 miles. We waded the Rapidan today at Liberty Mills. October 11th, we forded Robertson River and marched up and down hollows without singing or making any noise, so that the enemy could not see or hear us. We heard firing on our left. We are 8 miles from Culpeper Courthouse. October 12th, started at daylight, marched 25 miles, waded the Hazel River at 10 this morning. Had to take off our shoes and pants according to orders. It was very cold. We got within a quarter of a mile of Jefferson Town when the fight commenced. We drove the Yankees through town double quick. We halted 1 mile on the other side of the town, then formed in line of battle once more and went forward. We drove the enemy over the Rappahannock and through Warrenton Springs, took 300 prisoners, and halted at 9 in the night. October 13th, left here at daylight, marched through Warrenton, a very handsome place, went 2 miles further, and camped for the night. 7 miles. October 14th. My corps of sharpshooters marched in front of the line, left camp at 4 this morning, and at daylight, as General Ewell and staff rode up to us, there was a volley shot at us. We immediately deployed after the enemy. We fought on a run for 6 hours, all the time the enemy falling back. They at one time raised a white flag and surrendered. We then stopped firing, and as we got within 100 feet, they opened on us again, for they saw we were only a line of sharpshooters. We then resumed firing at them. I captured a mailbag in the fight, and in several letters I found some money. We halted, and the enemy kept on running like wild ducks. This is the Battle of Bristoe Station. We took many prisoners. As we got through fighting, we heard firing on our right. We marched to their support, but when we got there, the firing had ceased. 25 miles today. We camped on Manassas Plain, raining haired all night. October 15th. Here all day and talking with our prisoners. October 16th. Left this morning at 4, marched 5 miles, and halted on the Orange and Alexandria Railroad, tore up 1 1/4 miles, and camped. October 17th. Marched 4 miles today, and tore and burned up the same amount of railroad. October 18th. Started at 4 this morning, and marched 10 miles toward Culpeper Courthouse. We tore up the railroad from Manassas to the Rappahannock River. The way we tear up railroads is this. We take the cross ties and make a square of them as high as your head. We place the rails on the cross ties, then set it on fire, and the rails bend double. October 19th. Left at 4 this morning, crossed the river on pontoon bridges. It commenced to hail and rain very hard and kept it up for 2 hours. We got very wet, halted at Cedar Run, marched 10 miles, and stayed here until the 21st. October 21st. We were sent to Kelly's Ford on picket. October 22nd. Relieved today. It was bitter cold. October 23rd. We commenced putting up winter quarters and were hard at work up till the last of this month. November 1st. Moved into our shanties today. There are 5 of us in mine. They are 10 feet square. November 3rd. Went on picket on the Rappahannock at Norman's Ford, 6 miles from camp. November 6th. Were relieved today. November 7th. Today, as several of us went to get some straw near Kelly's Ford, we heard firing and the long roll beat. Looking up, we saw the Yankees crossing the river. We double-quicked to camp and got there just in time to fall in with our regiment to intercept the enemy, but they had already crossed the river before we got there. We maneuvered about until dark, when my corps of sharpshooters was ordered out. We were within 100 yards of the Yankees and saw them around their fires very plainly. On the morning of the 8th, we retreated in very good order. I certainly was glad of it, as we were in a very bad fix. We marched until sunup and halted on Stone Mountain, passed through Stevensburg, stayed here all night, and resumed our march and halted on the morning of the 9th. We then crossed the Rapidan at the Raccoon Ford and are now camped at our old camp at Moulton Ford. We marched since leaving Kelly's Ford 40 miles. The distance is only 17 miles. We were certainly surprised for the first time since the war. We did not dream the enemy was on us before the firing commenced. Our brigade was cut off from the army twice, but our General Daniels got us through safe. Nothing new up to the 26th. November 26th, when we had marched 7 miles, we heard cannonading. The enemy is trying to cross the river at Jacob's Ford, but our boys kept them back. We lay in breastworks of our own, make until the 27th. November 27th, this morning we marched 7 miles, halted a short time, and resumed our march. Got 3 miles further, and firing commenced in our front. We then countermarched and formed in line of battle in the edge of the woods. One corps of sharpshooters was sent out to find the enemy, fought the enemy half an hour, and were forced back. My corps then went out as reinforcement. We fought then for 4 hours and were called back to our command. I, at one time in this fight, was in a close place. Being in front, I did not hear the order to fall back, and being by myself, was left a target for a dozen Yankees. But my Captain White saw what a fix I was in, and sent a squad of our company to my relief. So I fell back with them. We then, that night, went to Mine Run, and formed our line of battle there. November 28th, today the whole army is throwing up breastworks. The sharpshooters are out in front, my corps out today. We made ourselves small pits to lie in, as a protection from the Yankee bullets. These pits are just about large enough to hold 2 or 3 men. Pinckney King, Sam Wilson, and myself are in one. We are shooting at the enemy all day. They are returning the compliment. Late this evening, we saw some of them opposite our pits, trying to get into a house. We jumped out of our pits and fired at them several times, when poor King was shot and died in a few minutes. Another man was sent to relieve in his place, and we held our position. The other corps of sharpshooters fought all day. November 29th, ours again today, but not as hard as before, but heavy enough. The cannonading is getting heavier. December 1st, the other corps is out today. The Yankees, as well as ourselves, are well fortified, and we are confronting one another. December 2nd. This morning at 3, we moved to the right until daylight, when our corps was again sent to the front. We advanced toward the enemy's works. We moved, of course, very carefully, as we saw their breastworks, and in front of us 2 cannon. When we got in shooting range, the order was given to charge. We did so with a rebel yell, and as we got upon their breastworks, lo and behold, there were no Yankees, and the cannons we saw were nothing but logs. We followed them to the river, but their whole army had crossed. We, of course, captured a great many of their sick and stragglers. December 3rd, marched back to our camp at Moulton's Ford, and our regiment was sent on picket at Mitchell's Ford, 7 miles from camp. This has been a very severe 7 days campaign, as we fought mostly all the time. Cold, sleety, disagreeable weather, and we dare not make large fires, as that would be a sure target for the Yankees. Mine Run is a small stream on the Orange and Fredericksburg Turnpike. Nothing more worth recording up to the 8th, my birthday, and spent it as dull as could be. Have been on picket and relieved on Dole's Georgia Brigade. Up to the 27th, nothing doing. December 27th, we moved our camps from our picket posts 7 miles from Orange Courthouse on the turnpike from there to Fredericksburg, and commenced putting up winter quarters. On the 31st, moved into them, and for the first time in a year or 2, we have, with our rations, some coffee, sugar, and dried apples. The year 1864, January 8th. It has been snowing and is very cold. Some of the boys have formed a dramatic company, and I went to see them play Toodles. There were 2 men shot in our brigade for desertion today. Nothing of interest until the 11th. January 11th, left our camp at sunup, got 5 miles, and halted in the woods. We have been detailed to run 2 sawmills, and we are now putting up winter quarters there. January 16th, nothing more until today. W.R. Berryhill has got the smallpox. Quite a number of us were in the same quarters with him, but none of us caught the disease. I was detailed to work at the mills, and therefore I am learning a new trade, live, and learn. January 20th, hard work until today, when we were sent out to lay a plank road. While at work, General Lee and his daughter rode by us, and soon after, a courier came from his headquarters and gave us some woolen socks and gloves sent to us from his daughter. Nothing more worth recording this month. February 2nd, while hard at work in the woods, hauling stocks for the mill, my furlough came for 18 days, so I was relieved. On the 3rd, I left camp and got home on the morning of the 6th. It took me several days to get accustomed to living as a civilian, as I have been in camp for 2 years at a stretch. I had a very good time and will always be grateful for the kindness shown me by everyone while at home. February 23rd, reached camp today and found that my regiment had marched once since I left. This was the first I missed since my regiment was formed. Nothing more this month. March 1st, raining hard, left camp at 9 this morning, halted at dark 9 miles from Madison Courthouse, snowing tonight. We had a hard road to travel, and when we got to our destination, the enemy had gone. March 2nd, started back to camp. The weather was clear and cold. Got there at 7 in the evening, and I was stiff from walking. We marched 18 miles today. March 3rd, left camp at 8 this morning to intercept General Kilpatrick, who is scouting in our lines. We formed in line of battle, had all the roads guarded when we found out that he was already on his way to the peninsula, so we returned to camp 20 miles today. March 4, I'm as stiff as an old man this morning from yesterday's march on the plank road. March 5, we left the mills this morning and returned to our brigade a distance of 5 miles. Nothing more up to the 17th. March 17th, an order was read out at dress parade that all troops in the army would be held until the end of the war. This was nothing of importance to us as we enlisted for that time. It is raining and snowing very hard and almost every day. Our regiment is not in winter quarters, for we expect to move when the bad weather stops. We had a snowball fight, our regiment with the 43rd North Carolina, then our brigade with Battle's brigade. It was lots of fun. Nothing more until the 26th. March 26th, we were visited today by our governor, Zeb Vance, who made us a speech of 2.5 hours duration. With him on the platform were General Lee, General Ewell, and several others. March 28th, we were reviewed today by our governor. When I say reviewed, I mean all the North Carolina troops in our corps. After the review, we went to Ramseur's brigade, where he spoke again. So did Generals Early, Rhodes, and Stewart. That is all that is worth recording this month. April 1st, left camp at 8 this morning to go on picket 12 miles from our camp. Our brigade went on picket at Raccoon Ford and picketed up to Moulton's Ford. Raining hard today. Also, on the 2nd, the river is 10 feet above common watermark. April 1st. As I haven't heard from my parents since the war, they living in New York, I thought I would send a personal advertisement to a New York paper to let them know that my brother and myself are well, and for them to send an answer through the Richmond paper. I gave this to a Yankee picket who promised me he would send it to New York. Nothing more up to the 7th. April 7th. This is a day of fasting and prayer set apart by President Davis. April 9th, were relieved today by Dole's Georgia Brigade. Got to camp at 1 in the evening, raining very hard all day. Nothing more up to the 14th. April 14th, I went to A.P. Hill's Corps to visit my friend, Lieutenant Rusler, and returned to camp on the 15th. April 15th, nothing more up to the 18th. April 18th, our corps of sharpshooters went out today, target practicing. We shoot a distance of 500 yards, offhand. Some very good shooting was done. April 20th, I hit the bullseye today. We are practicing every day up to the 23rd. April 23rd, went to Moulton's Ford, met Stonewall Brigade on our way, and had some lively talk with them, all in fun, of course. Stayed on picket until the 30th. Then we were relieved at 11 in the morning and reached camp at 2. May 1st, rumors are flying that we will soon get hard fighting. Nothing more up to the 4th. May 4th, 1864. This morning we got orders to be ready at a moment's notice. Broke camp at noon, marched to our old breastworks at Mine Run, 7 miles from camp. Rested 2 hours and moved forward toward the river 3 miles further and halted. May 5th, moved this morning, feeling for the enemy, and came up to them at noon, 5 miles from the run, in the wilderness. It certainly is a wilderness. It is almost impossible for a man to walk, as the woods are thick with underbrush growth and all kinds of shrubbery, old logs, grapevines, and goodness knows what. My corps of sharpshooters was ordered to the front. We formed in line and advanced to the enemy. We fought them very hard for 3 hours, they falling back all the time. Our sharpshooters' line got mixed up with Gordon's brigade and fought with them. In one charge, we got to the most elevated place in the wilderness. We looked back for our brigade, but saw it not. Just then, a Yankee officer came up, and we took him prisoner. Some of Gordon's men took him to the rear. 6 of our regiment's sharpshooters, myself included, went to the right to join our regiment, but were picked up by the Yankees and made prisoners. We were run back in their line on the double quick. When we got to their rear, we found about 300 of our men were already prisoners. The Yankees lost very heavily in this fight, more than we did, although we lost heavily enough, but my heavens, what an army they have got. It seems to me that there are 10 of them to 1 of us. It looks strange that we could deliver such fearful blows when, in fact, if numbers counted, they should have killed us 2 years ago. In going to their rear, we passed through 4 lines of battle and reinforcements still coming up, while we are satisfied with, or at least have no more than, 1 line of battle. Mayuskend fighting commenced at daylight and lasted all day. So did it last with their everlasting reinforcements. If General Lee only had half their men, and those men were rebels, we would go to Washington in 2 weeks. When he has fought such an army for 4 years, it certainly shows we have the generals and the fighting stock on our side, and they have the hirelings. Look at our army, and you will see them in rags and barefooted. But among the Yankees, I see nothing but an abundance of everything. Still, they haven't whipped the rebels. Several of our boys came in as prisoners today. With them, Engel of our company. They think I was killed. So does my brother. But as yet, the bullet hasn't done its last work for your humble servant. May 7th, we are still penned up as prisoners in the rear of the army, close by General Grant's headquarters. A great many prisoners came in today. From some of them, I heard that my brother was well. May 8th, we left this place at dark last night, but only got a distance of 2 miles, and it took us until 9 in the morning of the 9th. May 9th, started again this morning, and passed over the Chancellorsville battlefield. Marched 12 miles today. We passed a brigade of Negro troops. They gave us a terrible cursing and hollered Fort Pillow at us. I am only sorry that this brigade of Negroes was not there. Then they certainly would not curse us now. We halted at dark on the plank road 7 miles from Fredericksburg. May 10th, the fighting today at Spotsylvania Courthouse. Prisoners still coming in, 2 more from my company. May 11th. This morning about 800 more prisoners came in. Most of them were from my brigade, as well as from Dole's Georgians. I was surprised to see my brother with them. He was taken yesterday, but before he surrendered, he sent 2 of the enemy to their long home with his bayonet. May 12th, raining hard all day and fighting all last night. About 2 o'clock this afternoon, about 2,000 prisoners came in, with them Major General Johnson and Brigadier General Stewart. We have moved 4 miles nearer to Fredericksburg. I suppose they think we are too close to our own lines, and they are afraid we will be recaptured, as it was a few days ago. We heard our boys, or as the Yankees call it, the rebel yell. We prisoners also gave the rebel yell. A few minutes after that, they brought cannon to bear on us, and we were told to stop, or they would open on us. We stopped. May 13th, left here this morning and passed through Fredericksburg, crossed the Rappahannock on pontoon bridges, and got to Belle Plaine on the Potomac at 3 o'clock, 19 miles today. It rained all day, and it is very muddy. May 14th. We are still camped here, have been prisoners since the 5th of this month, and have drawn 3.5 days' rations. On that kind of a diet, I am not getting very fat. We certainly would have suffered a great deal, but our Yankee Guard gave us quite a lot of their own rations. May 15th. Still here. They are fighting very hard on the front. May 16th. Left this morning at 11 in a tugboat, and from here packed into the steamer S.R. Spaulding. We are now on our way to a regular prison. We got there at 8 o'clock tonight and found it to be Point Lookout, Maryland, 50 miles from Belle Plaine. It is in St. Mary's County. We were drawn up in line, searched for valuables, and they were taken from us and marched to prison 1 mile from the landing. There are 16 men in each tent. May 17th saw Mac Sample, Will Stone, and several of our company today that have been prisoners since the Battle of Gettysburg. We get 2 meals a day. May 18th, we are divided into divisions and companies. There are 1,000 in each division and 100 in each company. A sergeant commands each company. We get light bread one day and crackers the other. May 19th, saw Darnell of my company today. He was just from the front. He brings us very bad news. Our General Daniels was killed, which is certainly a great loss to us, for he was a good and brave man. Also, our Major of the 53rd, Airedale, and my Captain, White, all killed. Colonel Owens, my colonel, was mortally wounded, and quite a number of my company were killed and wounded. He says there are only 7 of our company left, and that our Lieutenant Colonel Moorhead is commanding Daniel's brigade. May 20th, 3 years ago today, the Old North State left the Union, and we went to the front full of hopes to speedily show the Yankee government that the South had a right to leave the Union. But today, how dark it looks. May 21st, I heard today that my brother Morris was a prisoner at Fort Delaware, Pennsylvania. I asked for a parole today to go and see my parents in New York, but they could not see it. May 26th, nothing new from the front. May 23, we are guarded by Negro troops who are as mean as hell. At each meal, there is a guard placed over 500 prisoners who go to their meals in ranks of 4. We are not allowed to cross a certain line called the dead line, but as 500 men go at one time to meals, of course near the door, there is always a rush. Today, one of our men accidentally crossed the line. He was pushed over by the crowd when a black devil shot and killed him and wounded 2 others. May 24th. One of yesterday's wounded died today. This Negro company was taken away today, as there is no telling what even men without arms will do to such devils, although they have got guns. May 25th, Engel received a letter from his father today, who told him they had seen my parents, and I would hear from them soon. This is the first time that I have heard about my parents since the commencement of the war. Thank God my parents, as well as my sisters and brothers, are well. May 26th, received 2 letters today, one from home and one from my brother Pincus, who went to Washington on his way to visit Morris and myself, as he has to get a pass from headquarters before he can see us. He was refused and returned home. Our daily labor as prisoners is that at 5 in the morning we have roll call, 6, breakfast, 500 at a time. As one lot gets through, another takes its place, until 4 lots have eaten. We then stroll about the prison until 1 o'clock, when we eat dinner in the same style as breakfast, then loaf about again until sundown. Roll is called again, thus ending the day. We get for breakfast 5 crackers with worms in them, as a substitute for butter, a small piece of pork, and a tin cup full of coffee. Dinner, 4 of the above crackers, a quarter of a pound mule meat, and a cup of bean soup, and every 4th day an 8-ounce loaf of white bread. Nothing more this month. June 8th, there is nothing new up to today, when I received a box of eatables, 1 or 2 shirts, and 1 pair of pants from home. The only way we can pass our time is playing cards and chess. 600 prisoners came in today, with them a lady who is an artillery sergeant. Being questioned by the provost marshal, she said she could straddle a horse, jump a fence, and kill a Yankee as well as any rebel. As time in prison is very dull, and always the same thing as the day preceding, I shall not mention each day, but only those days upon which something happened. June 11th, 500 more prisoners came in today. June 12th, today, as the Negro Guard was relieved, 2 of them commenced playing with their guns and bayonets sticking at one another. Fortunately, one of their guns, by accident, went off and made a hole in the other's body, which killed him instantly. The other one kicked at him several times, telling him to get up as the rebels were laughing at him, but in a very short time he found out that he had killed his comrade, and that we were laughing sure enough. June 27th, received money today from home, but they gave me, sutlers, checks for it, as we were not allowed any money, for fear we would bribe the sentinels and make our escape. July 4th, 400 prisoners left here for some other prison, as there were too many here. July 8th, Engel, Ryder, and myself received boxes from New York today, but as Ryder has gone to the other prison with the 400, we have made away with his box. July 23rd, 300 more were sent from here to the new prison, which is in Elmira, New York, myself with them. July 25th, left point, look out at 8 o'clock this evening in the frigate Victor for New York. There are 700 prisoners on board. July 26th, today on the ocean a great many of our boys were seasick, but not I. I was promised a guard to take me to see my parents in New York for 30 minutes. July 27th, we see the Jersey shore this morning. Our vessel was racing with another. We had too much steam up. The consequence was a fire on board, but we soon had it out. We landed at Jersey City at 12 noon and were immediately put in cars, and the officer that promised to send me to my parents refused to do so. We left here at 1, got to Elmira at 8 in the evening. July 28th, we were treated very well on the road, and especially at Goshen, New York. The ladies gave us eatables, and the men gave us tobacco. July 29th, there are at present some 3,000 prisoners here. I like this place better than Point Lookout. We are fenced in by a high fence, in, I judge, a 200-acre lot. There is an observatory outside, and some Yankee is making money, as he charges 10 cents for everyone that wishes to see the rebels. August. Nothing worth recording this month, except that the fare is the same as at Point Lookout. September. It is very cold, worse than I have seen it in the South, in the dead of winter. October. We have got the smallpox in prison, and from 6 to 12 are taken out dead daily. We can buy from prisoners rats, 25 cents each, killed and dressed. Quite a number of our boys have gone into the rat business. On the 11th of this month, there were 800 sick prisoners sent south on parole. November and December. Nothing. Only bitter cold. We dance every night at some of our quarters. Some of the men put a white handkerchief around one of their arms, and these act as the ladies. We have a jolly good time. The year 1865, January. Nothing, only that I fear that our cause is lost, as we are losing heavily and have no more men at home to come to the army. Our resources in everything are at an end, while the enemy are seemingly stronger than ever. All the prisoners in northern prisons, it seems, will have to stay until the end of the war, as Grant would rather feed than fight us. February. The smallpox is frightful. There is not a day that at least 20 men are taken out dead. Cold is a name for the weather now. They have given most of us Yankee overcoats, but have cut the skirts off. The reason for this is that the skirts are long, and if they left them on, we might pass out as Yankee soldiers. March. Nothing new. It is the same gloomy and discouraging news from the South, and gloomy and discouraging in prison. April. I suppose the end is near, for there is no more hope for the South to gain her independence. On the 10th of this month, we were told by an officer that all those who wished to get out of prison by taking the oath of allegiance to the United States could do so in a very few days. There was quite a consultation among the prisoners. On the morning of the 12th, we heard that Lee had surrendered on the 9th, and about 400, myself with them, took the cursed oath and were given transportation to wherever we wanted to go. I took mine to New York City to my parents, whom I have not seen since 1858. Our cause is lost. Our comrades who have given their lives for the independence of the South have died in vain. That is, the cause for which they gave their lives is lost, but they positively did not give their lives in vain. They gave it for a most righteous cause, even if the cause was lost. Those that remain to see the end for which they fought, what have we left? Our sufferings and privations would be nothing had the end been otherwise, for we have suffered hunger, been without sufficient clothing, barefooted, lousy, and have suffered more than anyone can believe, except soldiers of the Southern Confederacy, and the end of all is a desolated home to go to. When I commenced this diary of my life as a Confederate soldier, I was full of hope for the speedy termination of the war and our independence. I was not quite 19 years old. I am now 23. The 4 years that I have given to my country I do not regret, nor am I sorry for one day that I have given. My only regret is that we have lost that for which we fought. Nor do I for one moment think that we lost it by any other way than by being outnumbered at least 5, if not 10 to 1. The world was open to the enemy, but shut out to us. I shall now close this diary in sorrow, but to the last I will say that, although but a private, I still say our cause was just, nor do I regret one thing that I have done to cripple the North. The following sketch is taken from Clark's History of the War, written by my Colonel Moorhead. This gives the endurance of my company, regiment, and brigade after I was captured. On the 5th, or 6th of May, 1864, the sharpshooters of this regiment were much annoyed by one of the Federal sharpshooters who had a long-range rifle and who had climbed up a tall tree from which he could pick off our men, though sheltered by stump and stones, himself out of range of our guns. Private Leon of Company B, Mecklenburg, concluded that this thing would have to stop, and, taking advantage of every knoll, hollow, and stump, he crawled near enough for his rifle to reach, took a pop at this disturber of the peace, and he came tumbling down. Upon running up to his victim, Leon discovered him to be a Canadian Indian, and, clutching his scalp lock, dragged him to our line of sharpshooters. The regiment was at Lynchburg when the pursuit of Hunter began. Marching with General Early to Washington, D.C., this regiment was one of the regiments left to support the picket line under the walls of Washington, while the rest of the corps made good its retreat to the valley, the 19th and 6th Corps of the Federal Army having been poured into the city for its defense. While supporting the pickets, this regiment became involved in one of the hottest conflicts in its experience, but succeeded in holding its position, repulsing and driving the enemy back to the earthworks which defended the city. At midnight, it received orders to retire in perfect silence, and, to the surprise of all, when we reached the position on the hills near the city where we had left the corps, it was ascertained that the corps had left the night before, 24 hours earlier, and we marched the whole night and the greater part of the next day before we caught up with the rear guards. Early's ruse, as usual, had succeeded in deceiving the enemy. This regiment participated in all the battles in the valley in 1864 and in numerous combats and skirmishes. In this valley campaign, the regiment lost its gallant Colonel Owens, who died at Snicker's Ford, near Snicker's Gap, in August 1864. He had been absent since the 10th of May, disabled by wounds at Spotsylvania Courthouse, had returned just as the regiment was eating dinner, and almost while we were congratulating him on his safe return, we received notice that the enemy had crossed the river at Snicker's Ford. The order to fall in was given. We marched to the river and drove the enemy across after a short but severe conflict. The firing had ceased, excepting now and then a dropping shot when Colonel Owens was killed by one of these stray shots. He was a good officer, brave, humane, social, popular with both men and officers. He was succeeded by the writer as Colonel. At Winchester, on 19th September 1864, Adjutant Osborne was killed. 2 years ago, Color Sergeant Taylor of Company E, Surry County, who had resided in Utah since 1866, visited me. He received a ball in his hip, from which wound he still limps, and in talking about his own wound, he told me as we were charging the 3rd Federal line at Winchester, having broken the first two, and when, near the temporary breastwork of the enemy, he received the shot which disabled him for life, and that, as he fell, young Osborne picked up the flag, and, waving it, ran forward, cheering on the men, and was killed within 20 feet of the color sergeant. He was an efficient officer and daring soldier, I suppose not older than 20 years, Lieutenant W. R. Murray, of Company A, than whom there was not a better officer or braver soldier in the old guard of Napoleon, acted as adjutant after the death of Osborne till the surrender at Appomattox. As stated before, Major Iredell, a true gentleman and brave soldier, was killed at Spotsylvania Courthouse. Captain John W. Rearson succeeded him. At Winchester, finding that there was a gap of 200 or 300 yards between my left and the troops on the left, and that the enemy had discovered and were preparing to take advantage of it, I directed Major Rearson to find General Grimes on the right of the division. General Rhodes had been killed in the beginning of the action, and apprise him of the situation. After some time, he returned, saluted, and reported the fighting being very heavy all the time, when I discovered that Major Rearson was shot through the neck, which wound was received before he found General Grimes. But he nevertheless performed the duty, returned, and reported, and did not then go to the rear until I directed him to do so. This gallant officer was killed when the enemy broke over our lines thus at Petersburg a few days before Appomattox. He was entitled to his commission as lieutenant colonel from the date of the Battle of Snicker's Ford, but I do not know that he received it. This was a volunteer regiment enlisted in the latter part of the winter and first part of the spring of 1862, and was organized at Camp Mangum near Raleigh the first week in May, 1862, and assigned to Daniel's Brigade, Rhodes Division. William A. Owens of Mecklenburg County was elected colonel, James T. Moorhead of Guilford County, lieutenant colonel, and James Johnson Iredell of Wake County, major. Colonel Owens had already been in service more than 1 year, having served as captain in the 1st Bethel Regiment, and at the time of his election was lieutenant colonel of the 11th Regiment. Lieutenant Colonel Moorhead had also been in the service the year before, having entered the same in April 1861 as lieutenant of the Guilford Greys, afterward Company B of the 27th Regiment, and at the time of his election was a captain in the 45th Regiment. William B. Osborne of Mecklenburg County was appointed captain and assistant quartermaster. He resigned in the fall of 1862 and was succeeded by Captain John B. Burwell. J. F. Long was appointed surgeon. Lauriston H. Hill of Stokes County, assistant surgeon and promoted surgeon in 1863. William Hill of Mecklenburg was appointed captain assistant commissary of subsistence. In 1863, Charles Gresham of Virginia was assigned to duty with this regiment as assistant surgeon. James H. Colton of Randolph County was appointed chaplain. J. H. Owens, sergeant major, promoted second lieutenant of Company Wennington and killed. R. B. Burwell, quartermaster sergeant. J. C. Palmer, commissary sergeant. R. S. Barnett, ordnance sergeant. Upon the promotion of J. H. Owens, Aaron Katz of Company B succeeded him as sergeant major, and upon his being captured, Robert A. Fleming of Company A was sergeant major. Company A was from Guilford County. A. P. McDaniel was its first captain, commissioned February 25th, 1862, and upon his retirement in 1863, Lieutenant J. M. Sutton was promoted captain and wounded at Bethesda Church, and on September 21st, 1864, in the Valley, and captured at Petersburg. P. W. Hatterick, killed at Gettysburg. First Lieutenant. J. M. Sutton, Second Lieutenant. W. L. Fleming, promoted from sergeant to second lieutenant in 1863. J. W. Scott, promoted second lieutenant from sergeant, chief of regimental corps of sharpshooters. Company B was from Mecklenburg County, and its first captain was J. Harvey White, commissioned March 1st, 1862, killed at Spotsylvania Courthouse in May 1864. Samuel E. Belk, first lieutenant. John M. Springs, second lieutenant, promoted assistant quartermaster. William M. Matthews, second lieutenant, promoted from first sergeant. M. E. Alexander, promoted second lieutenant from second sergeant. Lieutenants Belk, Matthews, and Alexander were wounded at Gettysburg. Company C was from Johnston, Chatham, and Wake, mostly from Johnston. Its first captain was John Leach. Commissioned February 28, 1862, was succeeded as captain by J. C. Richardson, wounded at Petersburg. Commissioned April 27, 1863, both from Johnston County. George T. Leach of Chatham, commissioned 1st Lieutenant March 7th, 1862. John H. Tomlinson of Johnston County, commissioned 2nd Lieutenant July 21st, 1862. Company D was from Guilford, Cumberland, Forsyth, Stokes, Bladen, and Surrey. David Scott, Jr. of Guilford County was commissioned Captain March 1st, 1862, resigned, and was succeeded May 15th, 1863 by Alexander Ray of Cumberland County, promoted from 1st Lieutenant and killed at Petersburg, April 1865. Alexander Ray was commissioned 1st Lieutenant March 1st, 1862. Madison L. Eflin of Guilford County, commissioned 2nd Lieutenant March 2nd, 1862, promoted 1st Lieutenant May 15th, 1863, and wounded A.H. Westmoreland, Stokes County, was promoted from the ranks to 2nd Lieutenant in 1863. Company E was from Surrey County. J.C. Norman was commissioned captain on March 8th, 1862, resigned the following December, and was succeeded by 1st Lieutenant Robert A. Hill, killed in 1864, succeeded in turn as captain by 1st Lieutenant B. W. Minter. Samuel Walker was commissioned 2nd Lieutenant March 8, 1862, promoted to 1st Lieutenant December, 1862, and resigned. B. W. Minter, 2nd Lieutenant, promoted 1st Lieutenant and Captain. Henry Hines, 2nd Lieutenant in 1862. Logan Beamer, promoted from Corporal to 2nd Lieutenant, wounded and captured in 1864. James A. Hill, 2nd Lieutenant, captured in 1864. Company F was from Alamance and Chatham. G.M.G. Albright was commissioned Captain May 5, 1862, killed July 1863 at Gettysburg, and succeeded by A.G. Albright, promoted from 1st Lieutenant, wounded at Fisher's Hill, 1864. Jesse M. Holt, 1st Lieutenant. July 16, 1863, promoted from 2nd Lieutenant, killed at Winchester, 1864. Branson Lamb, commissioned in 1864, promoted from 2nd Lieutenant. John J. Webster, commissioned 2nd Lieutenant May, 1862, and resigned. S. J. Albright, commissioned 2nd Lieutenant in 1862, and killed at Spotsylvania Courthouse in 1864. Company G was from Stokes County. Captain Spotswood B. Taylor was commissioned captain on March 20th, 1862, and resigned May, 1862, was succeeded by John W. Rearson, promoted from 2nd Lieutenant, and who was, in 1863, promoted to Major, wounded at Winchester, and killed at Petersburg, April 1865. He was in time succeeded as captain by H. H. Campbell, promoted from 1st Lieutenant, and killed at Winchester. G. B. Moore was commissioned 1st Lieutenant in March 1862 and resigned in June. John W. Rearson commissioned 2nd Lieutenant March 1862. W. H. McKinney was promoted from the ranks in May 1862 to 2nd Lieutenant and wounded at Winchester. C. F. Hall, promoted from the ranks to 2nd Lieutenant, mortally wounded at Gettysburg. W. F. Campbell, promoted 1st Lieutenant and wounded at Washington, D.C. Company H was from Stokes County. Captain Spotswood B. Taylor was commissioned on March 20th, 1862, and resigned on account of ill health November 1863, and was succeeded by John E. Miller, promoted from 2nd Lieutenant, who was wounded at Snickers Ford and captured 1864. Thomas S. Burnett, commissioned 1st Lieutenant March 20th, 1862, and killed in 1863. Charles A. McGehee, 1st Lieutenant, 1862, wounded at Gettysburg, July 1863, and captured. Alexander M. King, 2nd Lieutenant, March 1862. J. Henry Owens, promoted 2nd Lieutenant from Sergeant Major, December 1862, and killed. Alexander Boyles, promoted 1st Lieutenant. Company I was from Union County. E. A. Jerome was commissioned captain March 20th, 1862, and resigned in June following, and was succeeded by Thomas E. Ashcraft, promoted from 1st Lieutenant. John D. Cuthbertson, commissioned 2nd Lieutenant, March 20th, 1862, promoted first lieutenant. Joshua Lee, commissioned second lieutenant, March 20th, 1862. James E. Green, promoted from the ranks, second lieutenant, June 24th, 1862. A.T. Marsh, promoted from sergeant to second lieutenant, May 19th, 1864. Company K was from Wilkes County. William J. Miller was commissioned captain, March 20th, 1862, killed at Gettysburg, July 1st, 1863, and was succeeded by Jesse F. Eller, promoted from second lieutenant. Thomas C. Miller, promoted from second lieutenant to first lieutenant. July 1st, 1863, Thomas C. Miller, commissioned to second lieutenant in August 1862. This regiment lost in, killed its first colonel, who was twice wounded, both of its majors, one of them, Rearson, several times wounded, and its adjutant. Its surviving colonel was wounded 3 times, at Gettysburg, Fisher's Hill, and in the assault upon the Federal lines at Hare's Hill on March 25th, 1865, in which last engagement he was captured within the enemy's works. As it is, I have only the approximately correct report of the losses of one of the companies of the regiment, and that only in one battle, but I think the losses of the other companies may be fairly estimated from the losses of this one. Company B lost at Gettysburg. Out of 65 men, 8 killed and 22 wounded, and of the 4 officers, 3 were wounded. I meet many of these scarred and now grisly veterans of the companies from Alamance, Guilford, Stokes, and Surrey at my courts in these counties, and hear, sometimes, from those from the other counties, and with very few exceptions, they have shown themselves to be as good citizens as they were gallant soldiers. They illustrate that peace hath her victories no less renowned than war. The regiment, reduced to a handful of men, shared the fortunes of the historic retreat and surrendered at Appomattox, being then commanded by Captain Thomas E. Ashcraft, the brigade being commanded by Colonel David G. Cowand. General Grimes, having been made a major general, commanded the division. I cannot close this sketch without acknowledging my indebtedness to Captain Sutton and Private J. Montgomery, of Company A, L. Leon, of Company B, who kindly furnished me with a copy of a diary kept by him from the organization of the regiment up to May 1864, when he was captured. Captain Albright, of Company F, Captain S. B. Taylor, of Company H, and a Lieutenant W. F. Campbell, of Company G, for valuable information, and the hope that the publication of the sketches of the North Carolina regiments will excite interest enough among the old soldiers to give us further dates and incidents. I wish I could write a history of my regiment which would do the officers and men full credit for their patriotism and services. The patriotism and heroism of these soldiers were illustrated by the patient and uncomplaining endurance of the forced march, the short rations, the hardships of winter camps and campaigns, as much as by their fighting qualities. Posterity will hesitate to decide which is most worthy of admiration. James T. Moorhead, Greensboro, North Carolina, April 9th, 1901.